I always say I ain't giving up on you. If you give up on you, that's on you. But I'm not. I'm not gonna give up on you, right? And I know how to get through the smoke and mirrors and those conversations. I think that we just gotta continue to do a better job of like posing the examples there in ways that people can take in.
Welcome back to the podcast. I started this podcast as a way to help Black men in all aspects of our lives. Studies show on average we lose 2.8 years of our life when we're under heavy stress. And I think we can gain those 2.8 years back if we express ourselves healthily. Stick with me as I interview therapists, doctors, advocates, activists, and friends about how we can be better as Black men and as a Black community. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube and following us on Instagram and TikTok, you'll definitely want to do that. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
All right, y'all. We are here with Ivan. Ivan, you are CEO. We was having some talk before the episode about like what you do and just how you always in interviews having to talk about the business. But today, I'll need you to put the business hat down just a little bit. We're gonna get into that, a little bit later. But I want to talk more about like how you got to where you are right now, because you're leading a company, and you've done something that a lot of Black men, a lot of people in general don't do. Right. So before we even get into the story, can you tell people who you are, what you do, and the work and why it's important?
Appreciate you for having me here, Kofi.
Of course.
I was a kid from Cameroon, born in Cameroon. I'm very proud of that. Came to New York about the age of 6. Been a New York kid through and through since then. Still had the Cameroonian roots at the crib. So a bit about what I do, co-founder and CEO of The Zone. The Zone is a mental wellness platform, elevating students' mental well-being. And I got into that work through my own personal experience, myself and our team back home working day in, day out to really be able to give young people the words, the language, and the access to mental well-being in their pockets, because we know that, not everyone has that capacity and that access, right? So that's a bit about me, that's a small bit about me.
What you did. Yeah, let's get into it though, bro. Like, so you immigrated to the United States.
Yes.
That's a very unique experience, right? I know a handful of people that have done that, right? So now that I have you here, I want to talk about that, right? Because you came from when you were 6.
Came in when I was 6.
Yeah. How was that for you?
Whew. So the funniest story I always tell people is I knew no English. So French speaking, right?
Okay.
And my parents was like, they didn't even tell me. They just sent me to school, English speaking school. So I get there, it's like foreign language what people are saying. I don't understand anything what anybody's saying. I'm sitting in the seat and they just going through stuff. I start crying. And I go home and I'm like, I'm talking to my parents, like, what are y'all doing? Like, and I'm 6, but I'm just like asking, like, I don't know what's going on. And they just was like, you'll figure it out. After a week, I remember going into gym class and they rolled out a couple balls, and soccer's a big sport in Africa, as you know, Cameroon too. So I started kicking around the basketball, and a couple kids was like, you gotta shoot. So they come around, they like start shooting. So I start shooting. That's kind of how I made friends. And I always tell people that's kind of how I got interjected into the American society, right? But growing up in this, it's a big culture clash, because you're at home, you still got the African guidelines and the roots. But then outside, I was around, I was raised in the Bronx. I don't know if my parents knew what they were doing, but there's the inner city, right? So there's a different experience when you go out there. Like, you think about it, I used to leave home, want to be cool, sag my pants. I get back right before the block because I know my dad looking out that window.
Right, you
pick
pull
my
them,
pants
pull
right
them
back
right
up.
Yeah.
Right up. And walk into that household and be like, shake his hand. So, it was a lot of factors. It's funny when my friends start coming to my house, my American friends, I've never seen them do it. And it's some of the most street dudes that I know will get in front of my house and just push their pants up. And I was like,
tighten up.
Scared of my dad? And like, bro, he tough.
Yo.
My dad was no joke though. So it was that's kind of I like to say my experience. There's a lot of conversations now I'm having with my mom that a lot of things happen within that big culture clash that are still transpiring to this day, right? Within how they view relationships and how they view the firstborn son and how they're hard on, me in relationships and how they view like the woman in my life. So it's a lot of different factors.
Really?
But, I think unpacking that as a young kid and now as an adult and seeing, it's not always their fault, but it's something that I have to address and create boundaries around. But it was always a tough transition because I always felt like the middle kid.
What you mean by that? The middle kid?
So education is huge in African households. And I was, luckily for me, I pretty smart kid. So I had grades and all that. School came easy, right? But I would go to school and I'm like, well, girls don't really like you if you're the smart kid. So let me not actually get A's. Let me get B pluses, right? So I could hang around with some of my friends at hoop because they wasn't getting the A's or the B's, right? So I started like shrinking myself, making myself smaller to kind of fit in and getting in trouble at the crib, right? So, but it was like that middle line. I was always cool with the white kids, but then I always wanted to be cool with the cool black kids. And so I always found myself in the middle line of like, all right, when am I going to be myself, right? Because I knew what I liked. I hoop to fit in. And I actually just got good at it. Ended up playing college, but I never really loved the game of basketball until about college, but I never really loved it.
Right.
I just was like, I got to stay around these people. You know what I mean? So that's kind of it because wasn't no Africans around where I was around that kind of was doing what I was trying to navigate. So I didn't have that bridge.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, bro. So basketball, sports was like kind of like an entry point into being accepted. And that was your way of being, being acclimated to society in the United States. Yeah. Let me ask you this, right? Because I feel like I've been to Ghana. I just went to Ghana a couple of months ago, and there's a unique perspective on what goes on in the U.S. Right? Like everybody thinks like out here is like amazing. I'm not gonna say it's not good. Did you have some of that coming into, and how did that look after you got into the United States? Like, what were your thought process?
So, like the perspective of my family back home?
No, your perspective when you were immigrating. Did you have somewhat of a perspective or an expectation?
I was pretty young. I think I was pretty young. Now, knowing what I know is my spirit was way more freer back home.
I talk to that, yeah.
And I know that because now, even when I go back home, I'm able to strip myself of everything. Like I could pack 3-4 white shirts and I don't really care because I'm with the people and the people are amongst the people and there's no shallowness, right? You come here, it's like, all right, there's a status on a lot of things, right? It's like, oh, I got to look clean or I got to do this or I got to do that. I got to do that just to kind of like
be accepted,
right? Now you can say you don't care or whatnot, but back home it's none of that. It's just you as you. And that's what's like heralded. It's the family, it's the spirit, it's the love, it's the light, it's all of that. So, I mean, I danced a lot. Like when you think about your inner child, I used to dance up until like I came here. Like I used to just dance in the house and that's what Afrobeats, that's what we do, right? When I came here, I stopped dancing.
Because it's not cool. You don't see no black boys
just out here dancing,
right? Exactly.
Even now, when you look at the videos, the videos is now you're seeing like the drill dancing and all of that, which is it's amazing. I love that because that's a form of expression. But a lot of time you see the kids back home. There's videos of kids back home dancing, right? And that's just what we did on a regular. You know? So that's like your spirit's free.
You know what's interesting that you said? There's a couple of things you said that's interesting. First, I want to talk about the drill dancing because I think there's a parallel with that and like African, like traditional African style dancing. Like a lot of the moves that they do look like some of the stuff that I see back home and they don't even realize it. Like a lot of, at least to me, like perspective, like my perspective is like, yo, some of that drill dance, I'm like, yo, bro, y'all don't even realize like y'all got African roots in y'all and that comes out in the way that y'all express yourselves through dance because that's just ingrained in us. So that's one of the points I wanted to hit on. The other point that I wanted to hit on is just like, the perspective shift when you're in like Africa and then like looking at the United States, right? Like I think a lot of people out here have like this perspective of Africa and African countries like that is like just destitute and that nobody's taking care of themselves and all these different kind of things. And when I went to Ghana, I was like, yo, I didn't have that perspective, but it was still kind of a shock to me to kind of see how everything operates out there. Like on every street, there's people selling you stuff. Every street, there's people selling you stuff. Like out here in New York, United States, there's gonna be some streets where you see flowers or maybe water or whatever the case may be. In Ghana, bro, they were selling bread, toothpaste, phone chargers, wallets. I was like, bro, by the time if you do a 15-minute drive, you don't even need to go to the grocery store, for real. They selling you everything on the street.
It's outside.
Yeah, nah, for real. Everything's outside. And I like that because I feel like that really helped me to see the perspective of Ghanaians, which is like, yo, we got to do what we need to do. We need to take care of things, and we're not going to sit around and wait for stuff to happen. And it's really a family, like a lot of the things that we want to do out here in the Black community about like unifying things and making sure people work together, they're already doing that in Ghana because they have to.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Like they have to. People are selling stuff and they'll divvy it up with their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The money that comes in, it has to circulate within their ecosystem because everybody's buying from everybody.
Yeah.
This person has a store that's selling this. This person has a store that's doing this. This person is a craftsman that does that. This person is a seamstress. You know what I'm saying? So everybody has their role that they play and they divvy things up. And so I feel like a lot of people got to get back to their roots and understand where we come from and how to make these things work. And me going out there really helped me to realize that, like, yo, a lot of things we complain about in the U.S. and think about, like, we need to change this or we need to get back to be more unified. Like, they're already doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're already doing that. And we had this perspective that it's like this destitute land and everybody's out there begging and stuff. It's like, nah, bro, y'all got to go out there and really see it for yourself, for real, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The resources is laid out here, right? There's more access, but the foundation is back there, right? Like they got the foundation and the structure of like, all right, we're gonna do this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now they may not create, not all of them, but that's another topic. $1 million businesses, right? But what they will have is somewhere they can feed their family, they can enjoy it, they're gonna have commerce and businesses, you know, and be able to align together. Like my mom hit me up a couple days ago and she sent me some financial shit. I was like, what is this? And she was like, oh, we got catfish back in Cameroon that we're selling. You know, one family member is selling. Now we're about to get chicken in the backyard. Like they just built a crib in a village. So my dad, you know, his exit plan is a farm. You know, have a big farm. They got acres of land back home. So they're like, she's just like trying to get me involved in that process, right? And I need to start going home more. I don't go home enough, but I always, you know, I told my girlfriend, like, yo, we're gonna 1 month every year, you know, I want to take my kids and I don't have no kids yet, but my kids, we're gonna take the kids, we're gonna go back there and just gonna see the roots. They're gonna understand it, they're gonna feel it, right? And it's just understand, you know, because my last name Tchatchouwo, you know, understand what that household is like, you know, what my parents are able to build, my grandparents and all of that stuff, right? There's a lot to see. So and I feel like it's just a different feeling.
Yeah. Man, you talk about your last name and had me thinking, man. So my last name is Forson. And my dad changed his last name when he moved. Like he immigrated to like the UK or something like that. And his last name was very like African sounding. It's Ochiri, right? So Okyere. So as soon as you see that name, you're like, oh, this is an African person that lives here, right? And so he was dealing with a lot of like racism and just a lot of like targeting. And so for him was like, yo, the only thing that he knew to do to protect himself was to change his name, because where he lived, the name would be shown on like the house or like the mailbox or something like that. So he changed his name to Forson and make it sound more white, right? So when he told me that story, at first I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever, right? But then as I started realizing, I'm like, yo, damn, we lost our roots. You know what I'm saying? We lost our family history because of this, right? Not blaming my pops for that, but at the same time, it's like, yo, we actually did lose our family history over that. It never sat right with me. So what I'm going to end up doing is changing the name back now, because we don't got to deal with that anymore. You know what I'm saying? So getting back to your roots. And that was one of the things that I learned through conversation with him. That's why I always tell people on the platforms, like, yo, talk to your elders, because there's so much stuff that they've gone through, that things that have happened in the family that you just don't even know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you have no idea. I would have never known that if I never like had a conversation with him about that. Yeah, and that's super important. Like your name, like that's your lineage. You got to pass that down. That has a lot of history behind it, bro. So it's very, very, very important to get tapped in with that. All right, I'm interrupting this podcast episode to let you guys know to leave a review on the podcast. Please, 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 if you are listening to this episode and you're finding value in this episode, you're enjoying the conversation, or you've enjoyed a previous episode or conversation, and it's safe to operate your phone right now, please leave us a review. Your review is a free and easy way to support us, and it helps us reach more people like you. We're on a mission to build a stronger, more connected Black community, starting with Black men. And you can help us on that mission by taking a minute out of your day to leave a review. Your review helps us generate more listeners,
which in turn generates more revenue, allowing us to expand the platform even further. So please take a few seconds out of your day. I know you're busy. I understand. I know you're doing a lot, but it will help us greatly if you would just take a few seconds out of your day to leave a review right now. Did you leave a review yet? All right, let's get back to the episode.
I wanted to pivot. I know you talked about playing basketball. And we had a conversation before we had this podcast, and you were telling me a little bit about that time in your life. When did you first realize that you need to prioritize your mental health?
I mean, the story for me is clear. You know, being at Concordia College, I remember my junior year, my coach, we had a conversation, and I was gonna have an opportunity to be captain, right, and step up and not be wait behind upperclassmen anymore. I was gonna be the upperclassman, and so I was like, all right. You know, that summer I put in everything. You know, when I mean, I ain't drink, I ain't go out. I just 3 times a day just working out and working on my game, and you know, I came back pretty dominant. Preseason, had a pretty good preseason, and then the injury. You know, I caught a knee injury that took the season away, basically.
What was it?
I dislocated this left patella, and then I tore a bone in my left knee too. I mean, my left ankle, and it was the third time I had done it, but it was the biggest because I had tore more things in my left knee, and you know, from that moment on, I didn't know, my identity felt like it was over. You know what I mean? So I stopped going to classes, and I was studying pre-med at the time. I don't know how I was figuring it out, but I was studying pre-med at the time, and I stopped going to classes. So you miss 3 pre-med classes, basically like you getting a 0, you know?
Right.
And I got dropped out that program, and I had to go into biology, but I just wasn't going to classes.
Right.
I started finding different substances to kind of take in the morning to kind of just like take the pain away. You know what I mean? Like the pain of like not feeling seen, not being clapped for, you know, not getting my opportunity that I thought I worked for. And I had no idea this was mental health. Once again, in the African community, that's not a thing, right? So in my household, it wasn't like, when you talk about emotions, my dad didn't even let us cry, really. I remember one time in my room, in the dorm room, I just woke up tearing, you know, and I was just like, nah, let me get up, you know, and the whole day I felt emotional, right? But I couldn't have the words to it, right? And I ended up speaking to my coach, and he kind of said, yo, we have a clinical psychologist on campus. And Dr. Alex Diaz, I remember walking into his office. There was like a white couch in Larchmont in Bronxville. So I walked into his office, I sat down, and I walked right out. I was like, yeah, I'm not staying here. Like, I don't know what this is.
You didn't feel comfortable?
Hell no.
Were words exchanged at all?
No, yeah, he said hello. He knew I was coming, but then I sat down. I was like, nah, I can't do this. I left. Next day, I was back in there, and I was like, all right, I think I'm ready. You know, I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'm gonna get out of it. And I remember the first conversation, he was just like, you can't even sit with your own thoughts for a couple minutes, right? And and once I heard that, it was just like, yeah. And then I just started talking, and me and him started talking. And I was like, what's the outcome, man? He was like, don't rush the process, right? And I would go see him about once or twice a week for like 3 months, and kind of learned about mental health, behavioral health, how it hits you, what happens if you don't have the correct coping skills, identity crisis, what I was navigating, depression. So we unpacked a lot of, you know, it was now even being a clinical a mental health counselor, we unpack like just the bare bones. You know, now I'm unpacking with my counselor a lot of family and childlike and those traumas. But then I was just like, we was just hitting home on like me identifying like, oh, there is an issue there.
Right,
you know,
right.
That was kind of the first time I was like, oh, okay, you know, I got to figure out how to navigate this world as Ivan the person, not Ivan need to be clapped for a thing that he does, right? And so it was a 2014, that experience, not being able to really talk to my peers about it because my teammates, how they were coping at the time was the same way. And a lot of them was from different environments. So I would talk to them like, go talk to Dr. Diaz. I was like, hell no, you know what I mean? Like, I'm good, you know? And they weren't, you know? So it just was like, whoa, I'm by myself. Like, if I get better, I ain't gonna be able
lonely.
It's gonna get lonely, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of was scared. So I got better, but I teetered, you know, I teetered. So yeah, that was kind of the first time, you know, it just led me to kind of really awake and understand. And I just remembered I had high school teammates, right? And I wrote a article about this, a thought piece about this. I had high school teammates that, you know, a lot of them went through interesting situations and never stopped hooping because they couldn't find themselves outside of it. But then there was no like Dr. Diaz to kind of guide them. There was none of that mental health education early on that let them know like, hey, this is a thing that you're navigating, right? And so they had kids, some of them, and they just can't get out their own way because of what they didn't know. And I kind of learned that, dealing with the medical and having a lot of relationships with medical folks in the mental health space, just like, dang, what happens specifically in our communities, right? If you think about the suicide rates doubled with young men, it's insane, so yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, nah, that's deep, bro. You touched on a lot of stuff there. One thing that I wanted to highlight for sure is the healing journey, right? Like, I think we romanticize it a lot on social media. Everybody makes it seem like you just, set up a bath and put rose petals in it and a candle, and then you lay in there for a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And self-care your way to just being good. And it's like, nah, bro, it's not like that at all. It's a lot of nights where you just by yourself with your thoughts. And that's another point that you talked about. A lot of Black men cannot sit with their thoughts, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, sitting with their thoughts is like probably like the last thing they want to do, and probably the worst thing for them to do, or that they feel like they should do, right? Because what ends up happening is, and what was happening with me when I dealt with my depression in 2017, when I sat with my thoughts, my inner voice was so harsh. It's like I would sit with my thoughts and I would think about a mistake that I made that led me to feeling somewhat sad or frustrated, and I would beat myself up, right? And so a lot of Black men, what ends up happening is moment they start sitting with their thoughts, it becomes like a battle with themselves, because like you're fighting your inner voice. Your inner voice is like your harshest critic, and that can sometimes be because your parent was really strict, and you never got that affirmation growing up that a lot of us have dealt with as Black men. Or it could just be because of what you're seeing in society, like some of the stuff that we consume on social media, right? Like, I see men say stuff on a platform like, these people hate us, and I hate this, I hate my life, and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yo, bro, that's not even you. Nobody's born thinking I hate my life, in my opinion, right? Like, that's something that kind of you get taught over time, and you just kind of consume, and that becomes the narrative, right? But I think a lot of us have to do a lot of rewiring when it comes to how we speak to ourselves, because that can lead to depression in itself. And if it doesn't lead to depression, it can just exacerbate the issue, whatever issue that you're feeling. Like, when your inner voice is harsh and all you can do is beat yourself up when you're sitting with your thoughts, of course you're not going to want to do that.
Yeah.
But like, now that I look at myself, like, compared to that time, like, now I love sitting by myself. That's the best time for me, because I really get time to sit and just think. So like, a lot of people like get in their car and they play the music, and don't get me wrong, I play my music from time to time, but we were just talking about earlier how, I got to go to the gym. So on my way back home from the gym, like the 15 minutes that I have back home, driving back home from the gym, like, sometimes I have days where I'm just like, man, I don't even want to listen to no music right now. I'm going to take these 15 minutes to myself and just think, right? And like, I'm driving, every red light, I'm just thinking about a bunch of different things, right? And like, my mind is not racing. I'm just like playing through different scenarios, thinking about stuff. Like, I got problems and stuff that I want to solve, not like crazy problem, like I'm having life issues and all that kind of stuff, just like problems with the business, working out tech and stuff that I'm thinking through, like things like that. When you have the time, like that silence to really go through your thoughts, that's the best time for me personally right now. But I know a lot of Black men that run from that. Like, they always need to be plugged into something. The TV's always on, or maybe a video is always on, music is always on, something is on. And I remember having a podcast episode where I was telling Black men, it was with Panama. I forgot what episode number it is. I think that's 75. And I was just telling them like, yo, bro, y'all got to slow down. Like, just slow it down. I understand we got places that we want to be and things that we want to do, but just slow it down just a little bit, bro. Because once you start slowing it down, you get the time to really receive the answers and stuff that you're looking for, instead of every day you're back at it. You never have time for self. You know what I'm saying? I think that time is very, very, very important. So I'm glad you touched on that, because I know a lot of Black men can relate to that. Just always having or feeling like they need to be plugged in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a lot of, like, the practical aspect. Like, I think, like, a lot of platforms, and you do a good job of it, don't understand, like, when you're pushing a message out, right? It's like, all right, be this, and somebody's already defensive on the thing, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, when they listen to it, how do you show them how it may show up in their lives, right?
Mhm.
Like it's critical to show actual examples that makes sense, right?
Right.
Like, all right, because immediately what taps into is like, all right, you want me to be feminine? Nah, I'm good. It's like,
Mm.
no, it's like, uh, I deal with this with athletes with our platform, right? It's like when we go to these schools to onboard the student athletes, at the schools we partner with. I'm thinking about football kids, football guys. I remember one of the schools we went to was HBCU,
Mhm.
and 70 of them in there, and they start like, "Yo, like, hurry up, man. We don't really want to be in here. Like, we're not gonna use this shit." And I
Mhm.
remember my team started like backing up. I was like, "I got this. I got y'all." And I was like, number one, I grew up exactly where you guys grew up. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that we live the same experiences, right?
Mhm.
If you don't want to be here, you don't got to be here. You could leave. That's
Mhm.
step one. Step two, though, you guys run around, claim that whole bullshit like team, brothers, I love you. I bet you there's about 10 to 15 guys in here that's dealing with some crazy stuff. They won't even be comfortable opening it up because you just said that. Whoever said that, you just said that. So you don't
Mhm.
really love your brother because you don't know what he really going through because he can't even express to you. So how much you really love each other, right? How much you really
Mhm.
teammates. But you could still walk out, and I'm gonna give 5 minutes for anybody that need to walk out, walk out.
You're
They
not
was
walking
like, and
out
they was
there.
like, yo, my bad. Like, I'm like, yeah, like, I'm not trying to tell y'all kumbaya. Like, this ain't meant like we're trying to tell you how do you navigate this world and this journey because you're gonna have to be, and there was men in there, right? So you gotta be a father, you gotta potentially be a husband, right? A partner, and you think you're just gonna be able to run the world and just like put up a block. No, you got to understand, like, all right, you got to communicate, you got to express. You can express through because the expression ends up being non-communication, violence, or all these other stuff that you just need to talk, right? You
Mhm.
just say your way out of it, and how you got to show them how.
Mhm.
A lot of time is how and what's the scenario because sometimes they weren't taught that, right? So
Right.
it's like having that grace too. And I always say I ain't giving up on you. If you give up on you, that's on you. But I'm not gonna give
Mhm.
up on you, right? And I
Mhm.
know how to get through the smoke and mirrors and those conversations. I think that we just gotta continue to do a better job of like posing the examples there in ways that people can take in,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, man. That's the facts. That's facts. You also you really touched on like earlier. You touched on how it can be lonely when you start healing.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Because what you start realizing is like you're healing and like you're kind of going up, and then like the people around you that aren't really invested in their healing journey, they staying at the same level, and you're just getting like the gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you go and hang out with them, and while it used to be cool in the past, now it's like y'all talking about some of the same things, some of the things that I may have been addressing in therapy that may be triggers for me. You know what I'm saying? So now these relationships are becoming a lot different than what they used to be, and so it can get lonely because it's like, yo, I don't even really want to hang out with the same people that I used to hang out with anymore, right? And so that's why we have inside of Safe Haven, what we do is we have our support network, right?
mm,
So not only are we going to connect people with therapists and help them through the journey of getting connected with a therapist and like their healing journey, but we also get them connected with other Black men that are going through their healing journey as well. So you don't have to have that distance between the people that used to be in your support network. You can
mm,
actually have a real genuine bond with brothers that are going through the same things that you're going through and that can speak to it at the same level that you're at instead of having to always make me feel like you gotta like dumb things down or like belittle yourself or feel smaller for where you are, man. Because I know that's something that I experienced, right? When I was going through my healing journey and I would start hanging with some of the same people I was hanging with before, I realized like, yo, damn, son, like I'm starting to see things a lot differently. Like, yo, this person that I used to think is a hater is not really a hater. They're just insecure about themselves, and
mm,
it comes out as like jealousy and like little jabs that they take at me. And I got to set a boundary with that. I
mm,
can't just keep on coming into this space getting for lack of better words abused. You know what
mm,
I'm saying? Like it's
mm,
basically verbal abuse, and they don't even realize what's going on, right? So like I remember having a conversation with my therapist one day, and we were talking about relationships between like men and just how I was having difficulty with some of the friends that I was hanging around with. And I was like, damn, but like I like hanging around them because I don't want to be alone, you know what I'm saying? Like I want to be able to at least hang with my friends. Right. And she was like, you know what you sound like right now? You sound like someone that's in an abusive relationship.
mm.
I said, fuck. I said, damn, bruh. I'm in an abusive relationship with my friends.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I got friends that I really love and genuinely care about, but I got to be able to set that boundary.
Yeah.
And you know, we always call it hate. Like, oh, that nigga hating on me.
Yeah.
Like, nah, bro, is insecure, bro. It has nothing to do with you. It's just the fact that maybe you grew up with your dad and he didn't grow up with his dad, and he's insecure about that. You know what I'm saying? And there's no words to it. It's not. He's not gonna tell you, yo, bro, I'm mad that you got your dad in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just gonna bubble up as resentment. And anytime he sees you doing good and your dad praising you or whatever the case may be, he just has all these different thoughts running in his head. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a lot of different subconscious beliefs. And so you got to be able to set that boundary or have that conversation depending on how good that relationship is. You know what I'm saying? So I had to, like, that was really a bar that she gave me. I was like, yo, I'm in an abusive relationship with my friends, bro. It's wild. So I didn't have that. I didn't really feel like I had that, like, support around them, which is why I feel like it's important for men to have it in Safe Haven. So for anybody that's listening, if you guys are interested in Safe Haven, that's the holistic healing platform that we have for Black men. To get them connected with therapists, get them connected with a support network. You can click the link in our bio and then click Safe Haven, join Safe Haven, or you can just go to www.expressyourselfblackman.com/safe-haven. And speaking of that support, right? Like, you touched on it a little bit earlier where you talked about, like, your family and, like, the African roots. Do you feel like you had that support from them when you started going through your journey?
My dad, I remember when I first told my dad, he took me to go get a CAT scan.
Okay.
And he was like, the doctor can't see anything. So you good. I was like, what? It don't work like that. Like, what you, like, this is what you, like, he literally, we was in the doctor, and I actually, like, went along with it because I wanted to see if he was dead serious. He was dead serious.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's like one of those things where, you know, now we're in a whole different space where he can call. But I also had to realize from my therapist is like, I stopped blaming him for the things that he wasn't able to support me on, because he, you know, he's the second youngest, but he raised basically his family, right? And so his lineage and his process, his mom died. No, his dad died when he was young. He had his mom. He's very close to his mom. So his lineage was like, yo, tough. He had to step up really early, right? For him. So for me, he was like crying and all of that. Like, when I started expressing to him, he was like, no, like, that's weak. And now I fought it because I was like, man, this is who I am. This is what I'm gonna be, right? There's no way, not weak, but there's things that I go through that's real, right? And I have to have different conversations around it. But my mom was so supportive, like, because that's my rock, you know what I mean? So she was the problem with her, she was trying to save every situation. I was like, Mom, I'm just expressing to you. You ain't gotta, feel it, but she's amazing, right? They both are amazing, because now my dad's done 360, and he calls me, he's like, how you doing? Like, how you doing? Everything is intact, And I realized for him, it was worry. He was just worried that he wasn't fulfilling, because my dad's a diplomat, so he traveled a lot, right? So he was gone. So he felt like he didn't do his fatherly job, I felt like, right? So, and I, the message I always tell him is, you did. You know what I mean? you're not going to hit a home run. You're not going to score 100, right? But you scored a big enough impact on the important things. And,
right.
I'm a byproduct of it, and now my brothers are too, so it's and my brother seeing that was super important for me, because it was moments where I could have given up. I could have been like, I ain't fucking with him no more. That's it,
Yeah.
But I was like, I got two black younger brothers. At some point, my dad's gonna be able to spin it and get better. It might not be the way I wanted it for me, but it's gonna be for one of my youngest brother that needs it.
Right.
So I had to go through that process, because if I don't, then you go down the aspect of, okay, you might be all right, but now your younger brothers that need it, not all right, because you left and they want to follow your route, and they're like, I ain't messing with that either, and that's not realistic, So I had to forgive really early in that aspect, and I did, and it took a lot of work, but the support, my immediate family is pretty tight. My brothers were, we expressed, my youngest brother and me talk a lot about some real stuff, He's actually in Turkey right now with my father, but we talk a lot about like some real connected stuff, and he's a big bouncing board for me.
Okay, yeah, I love that, bro. I love that for sure, man. Yeah, like I think when I was going through my depression, I didn't even talk to my parents about it. Like at first, because one, like you said, I didn't even know it was depression at first. I was like, man, I'm just sad because I'm going through a breakup, and I'll be all right.
Yeah,
just need to focus on something else and get my mind off of it. And then when you get your mind off of it and it's still impacting you, like, all right, I don't know anymore. Like, I don't know if that's the route that I need to take, right? And so eventually I got to the point where I was comfortable and I was good. And I started openly talking about mental health and stuff. And I finally opened up to my parents and talked to them about it. And I was just like, yo, bro, like I had suicidal thoughts. Like I was playing, I did not want to be here. And they were just like, they were shocked. You know what I'm saying? Like they couldn't even believe that. Cause I was always that kid growing up where it's like, you looked on the outside, it looked like everything was good. You know what I'm saying? I was a non-problematic child, for lack of better words, right? Where it's like, all right, all you gotta do is tell me what to do and I'm gonna do it.
You got siblings?
Yeah, I got siblings. Yeah, I got a younger brother. I actually had him on the podcast, episode 73. Yeah, I have a younger brother and then I have an older sister. And then I also have another older brother, right? So I was like, kind of like middle childish where it's like, they didn't really have to worry about me too much. So them hearing, damn, you went through depression, suicidal ideations, like I think any parent is going to be scared. They're going to be nervous, you know what I'm saying? Like they're going to be nervous. So now it comes to the point too, like sometimes when they know like I may be going through a relationship conflict or something, like I remember when I got cheated on and I told them afterwards, like, cause you know, your parents ask you about relationships and what's going on. I said, man, mom, she cheated on me. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, she cheated. But my mom wasn't even really that surprised though. My mom was kind of like,
on the fence about her?
Yeah, both of them were on the fence. But I love my parents because they never gonna make you feel like that. And they would never make any partner that I bring in the crib feel like that. Like they're not gonna make them feel like, oh, we don't like you. They're gonna have their thoughts. They may express it a little bit to me, but they'll always be cordial. You know what I'm saying? Your mom,
what? She try her best. She try her best, but I see it in her face. I see it, how she just react. You know, she ain't gonna, it's felt. Like I used to think my mom was this innocent person, but it's like, it's like, yo, mom, like, she was like, all right, it's your choice. I love you. I'm like, hey, what is that?
What you mean? That's not support.
What you mean? You know, my dad's like, oh yeah, he's to anything. But my mom, you know, and it's funny, I used to think that like, yo, my mom's the nicest. So yeah, everybody be fine. Then I realized, and I started talking to more of my African family members. They're like, what?
Yeah, you bugging.
You're the firstborn son. No, it's gonna be no games, no jokes. Like there's certain expectations. But I also had to like break it down because my mom, her thought process of this was like, oh, it has to be how an African woman would do it.
Break that down. Because there's a big
it's a lot of tradition aspect that goes into it, right? Like there's an expectation for us to marry an African woman because of the tradition already on site, especially when you're born there and there's strong ties, right? So I remember my aunt a couple years ago called me and she was like, I'm in the car. She was like, all right, you ready? I was like, ready for what? She goes, when you come home, we'll have a couple, lined up for you. I was like, nah.
They don't play. They really will line some
no, it's true.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's not how it's going to work out. She was like, you do know that in our tradition that we have a voice in the marriage. I said, no, not the way I want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm a human and I get to make my choices. I get to bring on culture, what part of culture I want. And you haven't even seen me in 5 years. So how you know what I like? How you even know?
How you know who to line up?
Right. And I'm like, I seen a couple of my cousins back home. There's about a lot of them that it didn't work out for, right? So y'all don't got this 100%.
Yeah, this ain't.
I've seen African marriages. Y'all stay together through literally crazy shit. So I was just like, so my mom, their expectation is different in a sense of like, all right, when she come to the house, it's immediate test that nobody I don't think could pass because it's like,
like what?
When a girl come to the house, it's like, all right, did she come? My mom and aunts was sitting in another room. Did she come and hug us?
Oh my God.
Step one.
Bruh.
Step two is, did she get his plates? Like, did she like feed him? I'm like, bro, it's my house. Like, she probably not even comfortable. She don't know where the stuff is at. You know? Did she go greet all the uncles? Like, it's test that there's no way that an African American woman that I'm dating, or whoever I'm dating, is going to pass that aspect, right? And I've always thought about that, and I'm like, I had to like have real conversations with my mom about this. I'm like, yo, listen, you're gonna create an uncomfortable space, and it ain't gonna be my girlfriend that gets exited. I love you, mom, but I'm creating a unionship now, and there's things that you're gonna have to accept. There's things that, you know, I'm not gonna choose everything in tradition. I have respect. I know where I come from. Yaoundé, Cameroon. I know what I carry. I know the culture. I know the values I instill. But there's values she instills too that I like too, and we'll merge that.
Right.
You know, if she don't want you feeding kids something, I'm gonna rock with my wife because I gotta go back to the crib.
Right.
You know, but I respect you, and she gonna respect you too.
Mm-hmm.
But just know that I'm creating the space for these things, right? You don't have to create the space, and you don't need a test. You just need to love and have respect, as long as respect is given to you. Right. And once you set that boundary, it's like, my mom was like, oh.
Yeah.
She ain't take it well, but she was like, oh, you know, and those conversations are, you know, through and through. And it's just her learning too. You know, it's her learning because she just think that she's doing
what she's supposed to be doing.
What she's supposed to be doing, because that's all she knows from what was done
tradition.
for her. African tradition.
Yeah.
You know, so now she's like relearning stuff and not understanding. You know, for me, for instance, when my dad was traveling and with his job, and you know, he, like I said, he lives in Turkey now. He was in Paris for 6 years, and we was all in the States, right? We didn't go with him. I had to help raise my younger brother. But with that, my therapist was like, you had to grow up super fast emotionally and be emotionally present for young men when you was a young man. So your fun, all these stuff people did, play video games, so I didn't have the time to do that, right? Like there was so much different aspects that, you know, I always felt responsible that I started to carry. It's like I left the crib. It's like if I get a phone call, because Africans is like together in the sense of, even if they're all away, you're responsible for your youngest brother.
Of course.
Right? And it's just like, you know what? No. Because I got my own stuff going on that I'm dealing with. And if Frank make that decision, Frank's 27. You know, you got to eat that. You know, it ain't got nothing to do with Ivan. You know what I mean? So don't create that aspect. So it was a lot of unlearning that had to happen, that's still happening. A part of the process that, you know, we don't really always talk about.
Nah, that's facts. One thing that you mentioned that's like similar to my upbringing is like kind of being responsible for a younger sibling. Bruh, my younger brother, I love him to death, but yo, for lack of better words, like somewhat of the problem child. You know what I'm saying? And so like we talked about it episode 73 about how like he felt like the black sheep of the family. Whereas like he's always having like getting talked to, lectures, whatever the case may be. And I kind of became like the third parent, which is like I have to go and have lectures and conversations with him about things that he should or shouldn't do and try and reinforce what mom and dad is telling me. And you know what I'm saying? So it kind of messed with our relationship a little bit, but it also did force me to grow up quick, because like you got to learn how to communicate to your younger brother how to behave. Like, you know what I'm saying? You're still learning how to behave your damn self. You know what I'm saying? I'm still figuring things out myself. But now I gotta go and like talk to you about your behavior and try and reinforce the messaging that's being passed from my parents to me to you. So like we ended up having like conversations like over the past few years where he was just like, yo, bro, I don't want to be lectured no more. I'm like, bro, I'm not lecturing you. But I realized like over time, like that's what our communication became. It's like every time I'm going to talk to him, it's almost like a lecture. And I had to take a step back and realize like, yo, bro, you are lecturing him. Like sometimes he just needs that support. Like even with your mom, right? Where it's like, you telling her like, you really just basically told her like, yo, sometimes you just need to support and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need you to do all of this protective stuff. For him, it was kind of the same thing. It's like, yo, I'm a grown man now. Like, I just need you to support. You know what I'm saying? And like, as much as I wanted to like, guide and make you navigate, and so you don't make mistakes and bump your head and all that kind of stuff, because I've seen what that route will lead you to. I had to realize like, yo, bro, this man is his own man. You know what I'm saying? Like he's gonna make his own mistakes, and he needs to. You know what I'm saying? Like he has to go through those things so that he can learn it himself. Because me trying to drill it into him, sometimes that's just not the best route, and it's messing with our relationship now. Because now he feels uncomfortable when I come and talk to him, because he's like, every time I talk to you, you giving me a lecture. Like nobody wants to be lectured every time they talk to somebody. Like, you're gonna avoid that person. You know what I'm saying? If I know I'm about to get a lecture every single time I talk to somebody, I'm like, bro, I'm good, bro. Listen. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I could understand. I had to, and that was like a heart dart for me, because my therapist kind of put me onto that. She was like, yo, you're not being a big brother, you're being a third parent to him. I was like, fuck.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
and that what he asked for, you know what I
You know,
mean?
exactly. And she's like, that's not your role either. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Facts.
kind of got thrust into that role at a young age, but you gotta shed yourself for that now if you want that relationship to really work out the way a sibling relationship should work. You know, like instead of you coming up to this room and lecturing him, like just support him through whatever trials and tribulations he's going through and allow him to dictate what you do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How you support him.
Facts.
Instead of you going up there and just like, nah, do this,
you.
do that, blah, blah,
He'll
blah.
come to you.
Yeah, exactly.
I had that relationship with my little brother, and it turned into some big situations. But I just was like, you know what? It's not me stopping and giving up on him. It's just, and then he started calling me now. He's like, I got it. I got what you was doing. You know, a couple of years ago, it was I needed that, you know, because I wasn't understanding, and I know you're always gonna be honest with me, and I'm like,
Right.
that's one thing I am, whether you like it or not. But I ain't gonna parent you, you know. You're gonna figure out your own ways, but I'm gonna be 100 with you.
Yeah, keep it as that. Yeah, now that's a fact. That's how the brother relationship should go, and that's something I really had to learn how to be a brother, for real, because I had learned for so long and practiced for so long how to be a parent to him.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and that's not what like maybe he may have needed that at some point. But we grew up with both of our parents in the crib. He has enough parents.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he needs a brother.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I'm
sure.
saying? For real. So I had to really learn that, bro. Man, takes me back, man. Takes me back to the family relationships, bro. But yeah, let's get into the zone because I know we need to talk about that, bro.
Okay,
what
okay.
led to you starting that?
I mean, I talked about the story a bit. You know, I think when I was sitting and going through that experience, I just remember writing down every step of the way on a piece of paper once I got to see Dr. Diaz, what got me into it, what was the steps, what happened. And I asked him, I was like, hey, what would have happened if I didn't come here? And he was like, well, there's a lot of different routes, right? You think about poor coping skills and resiliency skills. You think about suicidal ideation you might act on, right? You just start to really isolate yourself and create a lot of negativity in your own puddle. So I was like, oh, damn, okay. So if I don't know that these things exist or you exist or that I'm actually having language towards this, how would I get to you? How would I get help? How would I get treatment? And he was like, I mean, a lot of people don't have accessibility, it's pricing, there's all of this. So I just was like, back in 2014, what's in the marketplace, right? And I didn't know what I could do. So we actually started the zone first as a safe haven events, wellness, holistic, you know, basketball. So it would mix between basketball events and then, you know, you bring in counselors, you bring in nutritionists, you bring in financial people.
That's dope.
To just kind of like, you know, build the youth around not just being tied to one thing, right? But attacking them, that message through what they love. So we started having parents in there, and at a young age, we grew that business. You know, right out of college, and I had no idea what I was doing. Me and my parents were the funders of the business. Did about $75K a year, you know, first couple of years. And then one of my actual suite mates, he played baseball. He was a captain of the baseball team. We met up with him, and, you know, he was helping out later on. And then we just talked one day. It was like, man, we want to do this digitally. Like, we want to create a tech play, right? And this was 2016, we started having early conversations. 2017, I get into Columbia, and then I get into this class called Launch Your Startup in the business school. And from there on, the professor was like, you know, you guys really have something. How about you really go into tech? And the marketplace was, you know, Calm and Headspace and meditations were the leader in the space. And then you got Talkspace, BetterHelp, and the ones providing more access to clinical therapy, right? You know, so telehealth for the language that people are using now. So it was like, well, what if you think about these meditation platforms? If I'm not just meditating, or I'm not educated, and I'm not doing that, right? And more access to clinical services. Well, if I don't have the money, I can't get to these people. So we're like, okay, we gotta partner with infrastructures, organizations that have fundings. When you think about college athletics, where we started, but now we're entering nonprofits, high school districts, you know, high prep schools, those different big organizations to fund the software to younger adults, to help them understand, young adults, adolescents, youth, understand what it is that I'm struggling with. what are the steps that I need to take? What is the language? And then guide them. Right? We like to say that we're your personal mental wellness coach in your pocket. So we kind of help you get through the end-to-end process of identifying and then being able to seek out help. So we've built a tech algorithm around that. And when I say we, there's a team of 5, and then 5 of us internally, 6 developers, and we basically build a pretty solid business and foundation. We've raised about $600K to date. Now we're trying to take the big step and scaling it from student athletes to all students, which we're really excited about. But the work really started from where what we went through,
Right.
and then we've poured what we went through, and then continue to learn what this generation is going through, and how do we help them get this information faster, because what they were going through is, we've seen suicide rates increase. When you think about high schools and colleges, and high schools is it's about 1,200 students to 1 counselor ratio, and college is 1,700 to 1, right? Because there's more kids. Now you're waiting 8 weeks for an appointment. If you're even trying to get an appointment, the 30% of kids that's trying, you're going to stop, right? And then you start to see suicides increase, and suicides is going crazy. The numbers are growing super fast, and I think it's just the speed of things. People are seeing more kids commit suicide faster. They're thinking it's okay because of the media showing that, right? So it's just so many different aspects. So how do we created a preventative measure around that?
Right. No, I love that, bro. And I love the infuse of like tech with mental wellness, especially in the Black mental wellness and mental health space. I think we don't have enough of that right now. Like, I think we can make a lot more strides if we had more tech or just better solutions around tech. Like sometimes I'll see some of these platforms, and I don't know shade, nothing, right? But I'll see some of these platforms and like just from something as simple as like the form that people use to sign up for services. I'm looking at that form like, bro, this form is shitty, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, for lack of better words, bro, like this is shitty. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to fill this out, but because I need the help, I'm gonna fill it out. But that's where the market gap, that's where the gap is at, right?
And filling it
and
out.
That's what I'm filling up right now. So when you was talking about like BetterHelp, Talkspace, and all those different kind of like telehealth platforms, like you basically did the competitive analysis, right? Like you looked at what they have and what they're not doing. And that's what I did with Express Yourself Black Man. I looked around at the Black mental health space, and I was looking at stuff, and I was applying to different things, and I was just going through the process. And before I realized it, I was already doing competitive analysis. Because in my head, I was like, bro, this ain't good enough for me. But there's no other resource, so I have to use this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, nah, bro, like, let me do something. You know what I'm saying? So it started the platform, right? Then we start figuring out like, okay, these are solutions that will really help Black men. Then I was like, all right, cool. Social media content is good, don't get me wrong, but you ain't gonna heal just off of reading a bunch of posts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you need actual real life resources, and you need to be connected with resources. And so I was like, all right, cool, Safe Haven. Now we have the Safe Haven platform. People in there, they're getting the help that they need. But now I was like, all right, cool, let's take it a step further. Let's develop like a real back end to this so we could really be able to have data to really help people so that when they go through the onboarding process, we know what they're going through. We know what they're having issues with, and we can point them in the right direction right away. Like, they don't have to hit nobody up. They don't got to do anything. All you got to do is click a couple of check boxes, and then from there, that data will then be able to help us to put you in the right position for you to be able to get help with those things. And I haven't seen a black mental health platform, let alone a Black man's mental health platform, do that, right? So now I'm realizing like, all right, cool. This is how we develop real solutions that actually help Black people. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, bro. So I love infusing tech with Black mental wellness, because I feel like we have lacked in that for so long, because a lot of therapists go to school and they learn how to be a therapist, but they don't learn how to be a businessman or a businesswoman. And so they think that just because you have this space or this platform that helps people, that people should just come and get the help. And it's like, nah, bro. Now we're talking about building product.
Yep.
And building product versus building a solution, sometimes those are different. And people don't understand the differences and nuances in that, right? Like, you got to think about, like, how many clicks does it take for somebody to get help? How much stuff do they have to go through? Like, how many blocks do they have? Do they have to go to the external website? You know what I'm saying? Is the website loading up properly? Like, Who do they have to reach out to? What are the common questions that they have? Like, these are the things you got to start thinking about. But as a therapist, it's like, well, motherfuckers is depressed. I know how to deal with depression. Come to me. It's like, nah, bro. Like, okay, what's the onboarding process to that? You know what I'm saying? Some therapists don't even have their calendar set up straight. Like, you double booking appointments and all this other extra stuff. There's a bunch of calendar systems that can take care of that already. You know what I'm saying?
It's a great point you bring up, and I've had conversations with a lot of clinical folks, and I think it's super. What people forget, you know, and you kind of said it, and I don't want therapists to feel like we punching them in the gut, you know, but they're so behind on tech, right? So it's very minimal of them. They're very behind on tech. So it's like, okay, I always say, and I tell our medical team and everybody, we got to get the medical folks, the policymakers, the entrepreneurs, all in one room, you know, because that's how you move things forward. Because if you see in COVID, they started opening up that's when the insurance or the licensing, you can go out of state, right? But then when COVID's not around, it's like, all right, you could only do in-state. Well, you might be blocking somebody that gets better help from somebody in LA if they live in New York, right?
Right.
So I think you gotta get all the people in a room and make sure that as you're getting them in the room, there's a conversation to surface. How do we help the mental health and clinician folks get further in tech, because they can understand how to actually conduct business in a world that's moving so fast and everybody's going to tech because they're getting left behind, right? How do we get the information and help a young person limit clicks? You know, I think it's a lot of tech. Now, you need the tech folks in the room to create these different algorithms that actually are friendly towards a human versus against it, right? So it's like, how do you mash that up in a correct manner? And we're still very early to this party, but I think, you know, you said it, you know, we need the more niche platforms that's out there that's focused on the population, the better it's going to be in the outcome, right? And I don't look at the mental health space. Yeah, you can look at things as competitive, but not everything is for everybody, right? Something's going to connect with somebody, and how do we be able to, you know, come together and say, all right, this works, this working for you, great. It might work for our population, and let's think about it. So
yeah, nah, that's a fact, bro. Like, and yeah, definitely what you said. Like, I want to echo that. Like, this is not to bash therapists, Black mental health professionals at all. I'm just saying, like, this is what I'm seeing, right? Like, and these are problems, right? Like, if you don't got your calendar set up properly, how are people going to book a session with you?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? If people got to repeatedly go to your calendar to book sessions with you, that's somewhat of a problem, right? Like, we should be able to have a repeated system. That's still stuff that I'm working through, right? Like, so we got to understand that these are blockages. Like, once we get somebody in, there's chances that they will not continue treatment because of some of these issues, right? Like, it just depends on the severity of it, right? And also their commitment. But let's not make it harder for people. Let's try and make it as simple and as easy as possible. And sometimes that can be daunting for a therapist because it's like, bro, I'm not tech savvy. But there's a lot of platforms that you can use, right? And you mentioned something like where people are in different states and they can't take advantage of stuff because of licensing, right? That's something that we're trying to work through too, so now we're introducing coaching. So we're having therapists come in and do coaching instead of actual behavioral therapy or psychotherapy because we understand that there aren't that many restrictions when it comes to coaching. You know what I'm saying? And if you have people come into a platform where they already have signed on agreeing that that's what the situation is and they understand that it's coaching, you have contracts and everything set in place where it's not illegal, right? Because some people do some, you know what I'm saying? Some of that, you know what I'm saying? But if you have everything set in place where it's not illegal, it's not an issue anymore, right? Because that's another issue that we have where it's like, oh, I'm in New York, you in Florida, I can't see you. Like, I even have that with my therapist sometimes where it's like, I'm doing therapy and if she knows that I'm going to Florida, we can't have sessions. And I'm like, well, damn, motherfucker, I still need you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, I'm in a different state and I understand that you can't do that because of licensing, but that shouldn't be how it is. We in a post-COVID is like, bro, I haven't even seen my therapist in person ever. I got into therapy during COVID, so I've never actually seen my therapist in person. So of course I'm gonna be traveling and doing a bunch of different things. We can't stop treatment because I'm traveling. That's the laws have to catch up. You know what I'm saying? And until that happens, we need to be able to create solutions that work around some of those things. Not illegally, right? Like legal routes to do that. So nah, bro, I think it's important for us to infuse tech in what we're doing, man. But I definitely wanted to end and ask you this question, bro. So you've been through like the immigration process. You've been through the struggles and the difficulties of that. Also with the identity part of you like going through that knee injury after like really identifying with basketball for so long. What can you tell somebody that may be going through one of those things right now, or maybe both of those things? Like, what advice would you give somebody? Because I feel like with this, I don't want it to always just be like awareness and like just talking about stuff. I always like to be solution oriented and stuff. So what's something that somebody can take away that's tangible right now to help them with that? And you can just talk from your experience, things that you did.
Yeah, I mean, it's two things, right? You're not your thoughts.
Right.
You know, you're not your thoughts. You know, it's so hard to kind of unpack that, but you are not what is going on and springing in your mind. You know, so all the stuff that may be coming up, suicidal, all of this, I'm that. It's not realistic, right? You know, it's just a thing. But then secondly, you're not your thoughts. Secondly, it's also important to know that there's light. You know, it's gonna be light at the end of the tunnel, but you gotta accept it. You gotta accept where you're at, you know?
Right.
Like I'm not in the best state of mind today.
Right.
But tomorrow I know, you know, I'm gonna do the work to get better. You know, let me listen to what's actually being, not accept it, but let me listen to what's actually going through me emotionally, spiritually. Let me listen. Let me sit here and listen, right? Without acting, without giving it a subjection, like, oh, this is what's actually, no, just relax and sit, you know, and it's super hard. But once you get comfortable with that, things won't really move you as much.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Express Yourself Black Man podcast. We really hope you gained some valuable insight on things you could do differently with your healing journey and with the black man in your life. If you found value in this episode, please, please, please leave us a review on whatever platform you listen or watch the podcast on. Your review is a free and easy way to support us, and it helps us reach more people like you. We're on a mission to build a stronger, more connected black community, starting with black men. And you can help us on that mission by taking a minute to leave a review. Your review helps us generate more listeners, which in turn generates more revenue, allowing us to expand our platform even further. And speaking of expansion, we're in the middle of that process right now with the Black Man Safe Haven. We're expanding the Safe Haven platform to add more benefits so we can continue to support the demand we've received from this audience. During this time, we've paused enrollment to Safe Haven, but we invite you to sign up for the waitlist. Safe Haven is our holistic healing platform where we take the stress out of the healing journey for black men. In Safe Haven, we provide you or the black man you know with access to a black mental health professional so you can finally heal from the things you find it difficult to talk about, and you will receive support from over 200 black men that are all on their healing journey so you don't have to heal alone anymore. You'll also get access to weekly meditations led by wellness experts, support group sessions led by black therapists, a library of over 200 articles geared towards black men's healing, master classes, and more. You can join the Safe Haven waitlist right now by going to www.expressyourselfblackman.com/safe-haven-waitlist or by clicking the link in the description of this podcast episode. Don't wait. Do not wait. We've had hundreds of signups for Safe Haven already, and we'll be opening enrollment soon. Due to capacity, we may not be able to service everyone. So don't hesitate to sign up now to secure your spot or the spot of a black man you know as soon as enrollment opens. Thank you again for listening to the Express Yourself Black Man podcast. We'll be back soon with more dope episodes. And until then, take care of yourself first, then the people around you. Love y'all.
Sometimes I know you feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. A shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. No, you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for.